I'm gonna be honest, I've done multiple takes of this intro. I don't know what to talk about, to be completely honest. So I'm just gonna read you a poem that I find very endearing. And I think it will change your life and your perspective on the way you view things. So I hope this poem helps. And you're gonna laugh, you're gonna cry, I get it, I know. Just get a box of tissues, okay? Thank you. Sexuality. That's a spectrum. Many things can fuck up your rectum. Because as we all know, time is a mystery. But age is fisting me. Okay, so here we go. We are inside of D-Pay's game. Now, D-Pay, this dude's been on my radar for like quite a long time. I had never heard of this dude. I started following competitive TFT somewhere around like set 7.5, maybe around set 7. I think that's when I first like learned of Soju, when I started looking into all this stuff. But again, D-Pay, not a dude I had ever heard of before until set 8, 8.5, where he just kind of seemingly appeared out of nowhere. And again, that's out of like a TFT perspective, because if you know a little more broadly about generally like esports, this dude's kind of a fucking beast. I looked into his history, and he has a very rich history in esports, specifically in the competitive Overwatch League. He used to coach the LA Gladiators. He used to coach for the Vancouver Titans. He's a very, very respected individual inside of the competitive Overwatch scene, where it's kind of insane because I'm scrolling through like Reddit trying to find like more about this site, and like all the comments are like, yo, like top 5 coaches of all time, some of the best to ever do it. It's insane. And you know, if we look at his just meteoric climb on terms of like the North American ladder, this dude's playing incredibly well. Even right now, at the time of filming this video, he's ranked 9 of North America, ranked 9. And again, this dude, again, seemingly out of nowhere, top of like the NA leaderboards. He's sitting at a very comfortable 1194 LP at the time of recording this video. He's doing incredibly well. So yeah, I mean, we got to talk about what this guy's doing, because he's clearly doing something better than any of us. So here we go. Long distance pal, what doesn't kill you, and escort quest. Well, what doesn't kill you, I mean, this augment is shit. I hope one day this augment's actually good. I have no idea how the fuck they're gonna buff it. If you ask me, I think they can play around with the lever here, being the every you know, after losing combat, gain 2 gold. You could probably increase that like maybe by 1, see what happens. Maybe that extra gold is really nice, especially if you're playing something like Piltover. But other than that, it feels like buried treasures, but worse. Sorry, this is in fact the 13.13 C patch. Very crazy that we have a C patch, but again, like, shout out to the TFT devs for getting right on top of that as soon as their vacation ended, because this is fantastic that we're on a new patch. Escort quest is available as well. Not the best to take it unless you are on a very strong, like, I wouldn't take escort quest unless I have like 2 upgraded units. Like, that's the only way I'd ever take it, because you really want that chain dummy to survive. Yes, it's a bit of extra frontline, but again, you garner the most value out of it if you manage to keep it surviving. So it's a little difficult to say. It kind of feels like Spoils of War, where you really want to be playing for a win streak, but you don't have anything that's really helping you to achieve that win streak. So it's hard to say. Long distance pals, always a very solid augment to take. You always want to be playing duo carries in general, at least with the current set. So long distance pals is almost always great, especially if you're playing around flex. We do reroll the middle and the left side. We have Combat Caster 3's company. It's always going to be long distance pals in this scenario. Combat Caster, I do want to point this out though. I actually think if you're leaning Shadow Isles, Combat Caster can be very good. I don't know if it's a negative synergy with Shadow Isles, because Shadow Isles gives you like a very large shield, right? But I think with Combat Caster, Shadow Isles, and like Targon, there's actually a very potential line to be played there. I played that line like 2 patches ago, before the huge buffs to Targon, and like, it felt kind of shit. But Combat Caster plus Shadow Isles plus, again, Targon as well. I think there's a line somewhere in there where like you can really just try and experiment, see where you go with that, and just have like infinite shielding. Sure, the opponents can just build a guard breaker, but I mean, through like that much shielding, I don't even think it's gonna matter. But anyways, long distance pals is definitely gonna be the pick here, and we are sitting at a very comfortable level 3, Renekton 2, and 8 Gunners board. So we have a very actually decent board here. Again, DP played this stage 1. I know I was singing his praises during the stage 1, but very good stuff, very solid fundamentals. If you don't know how to play stage 1 correctly, DP definitely did it in this one, and I have a whole video dedicated to that. So, you know, DP played it very well. He gave himself a very solid 2-1 board that he knew he could play around. We do have the Aurelia pair on bench. He doesn't level to 4, which is very interesting. Personally, I would level to 4 in this spot every single time, especially if you're slamming the IE, you're committed to it. And that is just because you level to 4, you have a bit of an extra chance to hit those Jinx odds, maybe a duplicator for the Jinx 2, play for tempo, and you just 5 streak straight into Krugs. Very good time. Again, dude, I don't know what it is about Dunkin' Coffee recently. This shit's been making me gassy. But, like, this shit slaps, and it's cheap as fuck. If you're sleeping on Dunkin', dude, I'm telling you, what did I get? Medium iced coffee, 2 caramel swirl, 3 hazelnut, 3 cream. Banger. It's like, you ever go to Starbucks? It's like a caramel macchiato from Starbucks, but it's like $3 cheaper. Like, Anyways, I might burp a little bit in your commentaries, like, if you ever do this kind of stuff. But anyways, again, going into stage 2, again, really good stuff. He does level to 4 here on 2-2, which is off interval, meaning he does have 2 extra gold just sitting in his fucking pocket for fun. But, hey, like, he levels to 4 because he did win the first round, and he says, hey, might as well, especially because we hit that Aurelia too. We're sitting at a very comfortable spot. We do have the Jace Jinx in the background. This is a very, very standard, very, very nice flex play to play into a strong board. Notice how he's holding all the pairs as well, holding on to these Kleds, holding on to Trists, holding on to the Chogats. Cho'Gath 2 over Aurelia 2 any day of the week. Kled 2 does lean us towards Zed, which is really nice, but notice how he doesn't even make 10 here. Can he even make 10? I guess not. But if he could make 10, maybe he would sell everything to make 20. I definitely would in this spot, but obviously he cannot. So that's just where we're sitting. We do have, I believe, a duplicator as well as an open cloak. So Bo definitely would have been really nice here, i.e. Runez definitely opens up the wave for action reroll. Obviously, we don't have any Deadeye or actions, but it definitely is a possibility. We do hit the Cho'Gath here. We can actually play it as our level 5th unit instead of switching out the Aurelia, which is really great. And again, very strong flex option here. And you know, if he hits that Jinx pair, just duplicate on the spot, play for tempo. Again, still holding on to the Kled pair here, which is really interesting. If he wins, he definitely sells the Viego on the Soraka. Zed reroll has definitely been garnering even more steam. It was already picking up steam because of Solus just hard forcing it every single game and everybody on the ladder noticing it. But then on top of that, it's just a very strong and consistent comp here. So with IE and an open sword, it's very possible to play into the Zed. We do, fortunately though, hit that Jinx pair. We should definitely duplicate it on the spot and just play for streak. I personally would also probably just switch out the Aurelia 2 for Shen 1. I think Shen 1 is just too strong of a unit. I don't agree with holding the Kled pair here, because you definitely could have sold the Kled pair and the Aurelia and switch in the Shen instead. It gives you better direction. It opens up Invokers as well. And I actually do think that Shen 1 is stronger than an Aurelia 2, especially because we are not playing around Ionia at the moment. You could also make the argument that we do want to play Ionia somehow in that spot. I mean, it's not possible though. But again, the Aurelia, I don't think it's worth holding on to for very much longer because, one, it's not activated by any traits, but 2, we're probably not playing into challenges from the spot. I mean, maybe we could be, but even if we were, then maybe we want to hold the Shen anyway, so it is what it is. Anyways, bit of a Scuttle Puddle moment. We get a bunch of gold, bunch of components. We are sitting on an Ionic Spark and a Gunblade here. You slam those, I think, every single time. I mean, Ionic Spark is a little awkward because we aren't playing around any AP in particular, but Ionic Spark is one of those slams you can never really go wrong with. It's just a very strong item. Lots of damage, lots of just great utility. MR Shred, you can never really go wrong with it. But notice how he doesn't actually slam it, which I think is somehow oddly correct. You're sitting on a 5 streak here though. Level 86 was correct for sure, but this was, oh my god, this is like the greediest shit I've ever seen. I personally speaking, I think I would slam the Ionic Spark here just to really try to assure the streak here, but he does fortunately not get punished. Here, 3-2 augment, social distancing, level up, and binary airdrop. Excuse me. Binary airdrop. Binary airdrop, man. I have such a soft spot for this augment because I really like binary in general. I think it's a very fun augment to play around. You get to slam like 1.5 items on every single one of your units and just go infinite. But it's just not very good at the moment. Especially, do you know why binary airdrop is not good? Let's talk about it. Binary airdrop at the moment is not very strong because a lot of people are really, you need to really prioritize your items. Itemization is very, very important these days. And without having triple, you don't need BIS, but triple very strong items on your carries that are well suited for the carry, binary is just not a very good option. It's just that you end up with 1.5 really strong items for your carry, and then you get that extra binary value, and you obviously want to spread binary value, so you're putting 1.5 items on all of your units. But then you end up with a bunch of units that, like, you know, they have a lot of stats, but it's just a soup of like jack of all trades. There's no specialists who are supposed to be dealing out damage, supposed to be tanking everything for the team. So binary airdrop is not very great. Again, we do want to be seeing 3 item carries with really, really strong strong items rather. Really, really strong tanks with 3 really strong items, you know? Dual carries, both ideally with 3 really strong items that they can use. So binary airdrop just currently, unfortunately for the current meta, is just not very good. If the power of items go down, though, that's when binary airdrop really shines. That's not what we're seeing in this current game, though. Level up and social distancing are available as well. Social distancing from this spot is actually kind of nice. It kind of depends on the way you want to be playing the game. If you want to play for a very standard level 8, you could totally go for social distancing, push level 8 at 4-2 because this is Scuttle Puddle, so 4-2 level 8 is very possible, and you can play a very strong level 8 board. Level up is sort of it's like the Setsuko decision of these three augments here. Binary would be like the Soju decision, and then level up is like the Setsuko decision, and then social distancing is like for anybody with like a regular brain, if you will. Level up from this spot means fast 9. And can we fast 9 from this spot? That is the real question. We did pump level the previous round, so we did actually lose some level up value. But again, we were trying to keep our streak, so I mean, how would we have known we would hit level up here? So level up can be good. It's a little difficult to say. 100 HP in a very high tempo lobby, because this is, again, top of challenger. Everybody's playing very strong boards. A lot of people are probably rolling down a little bit at least on 3-2. If not, you gotta check the pace of the lobby. It's very possible this entire lobby, everybody just 3-5s it, level 7s, they just fucking sends it. But it is Scuttle Puddle, so you never really know. This Scuttle Puddle is one of those realms you really gotta measure the tempo of the lobby consistently, because if you don't, you're gonna fall behind the pace of the lobby, because suddenly people are spiking at like 3-2 or at 3-5 level 7 or even 4-2 at level 8. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on, so you really got to keep track of everything that's happening. You can't play Scuttle Puddle the same way every single time. So what we're going to see here is that I believe he's going to reroll binary for sure. He does scout the lobby a little bit, trying to see what else everybody else is playing. I think he is sort of leaning towards Jinx reroll at this specific spot. He does have transfusion here. I'm going to actually rewind the clip a little bit, and we're just going to slowly watch how he scouts. We do see a Noxus reroll player, so we know 3 costs are an available option to us. We do know that this guy's thinking fast. He's thinking fast into probably Ionia challengers. We have, let's see what else we got. We got knowledge download. This guy's going fast 9 goobums. So because he goes patient study into knowledge download, he's already level 7 with 50 gold. He's going fast 9. More scouting. We see a Kale reroll player. We see this looks like it looks like Invoker reroll. Keep going down the list. Transfusion. So again, the Kale reroll player. Again, another Ionia player. This is very possible to be playing around Zed from this spot. Although he does have a GS bow slam, his items are really bad for it. This probably is not an Ionia play, but rather it's probably going to be a challenger Zed, challenger Ionia instead of a Zed. Excuse me, reroll. Going down a little more, think fast again. This guy's think fast, Jinx reroll. Jinx reroll is definitely not the play for us. So it looks like that we aren't going to be playing around transfusion, because Jinx reroll, again, not an option, because I believe it's Setsuko who's doing think fast. So we're probably going to reroll social distancing here, because Giga Chad, why not? And we're going to take level up. It's going to be a fast 9. Again, we aren't being contested for this fast 9 strat. You're going to notice that he actually pushes levels to 7 here. And this is, again, the reason why you push level 7 here is because you want to garner value out of your prismatic, and being able to play up a fawn, that's kind of your advantage right now playing with this augment. Unfortunately though, does he lose here? No, he wins. Great. He wins here, which is really great. But again, if you want to garner value out of when you pick an augment, right, you should be able to garner value out of it immediately. That is the ideal scenario. And trying to play for later is never very good practice in TFT. You always want to be trying to play for now. And as you can see, like right now, he does actually hit the Callista too, which is really, really crazy. That's just out of nowhere. But not itemized. And kind of surprising that he actually decides to tech in for Bruiser instead of playing around this Aurelia 2 on his board anyways. But I think the idea is that he wants to make 40 no matter what. So making 40 here is really great, because whenever you're playing level up, you want to be hitting these economic thresholds to try and hit 50 as soon as possible, and you just want to push pump level whenever you can, but still maintaining the 50 economic threshold. So here, going into the carousel once again, I believe we're sitting on open sword. I believe open sword, we do have the Ionic Spark slammed. It's kind of hard to say what to go for this option. It's really just an AD item. Again, like we talked about before with binary. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm coughing so much. Jesus, am I getting sick? I doubt it. When it comes to when it comes to itemization in the current meta, you do want to make sure that, especially if you're playing around flex, you want to make sure you have 3 items that you can always slap onto whatever unit that you're trying to play into. So what do I mean by this, right? For example, we have this Jinx 2 right now with IE Gunblade, and Open Sword, and technically Deathblade. So we actually have items that we can just immediately slam onto any AD carry that we hit, and then we can flex around that AD carry. So for example, let's say we hit a Yasuo. It's gonna be kind of Whisk Yasuo, but it could be like an IE Gunblade, Deathblade Yasuo, and like that's fine. That'll work out. Obviously, we haven't hit any units yet, so we can greet our components for a bit longer. There's no reason to slam this Deathblade at all. On top of the fact that the entire lobby spiked like absolutely insane. This guy's sitting on double Yasuo too, for God's sake. But we are going to go into Wolves here, and then once we go into Wolves, you can see our components, see what units we hit, and start, again, flexing around. Right now, it does look like more, though, that we are trying to flex into AP and an AD carry. So we do have the IE, the Gunblade, and we have the Open Sword, but this is probably going to be something like along the lines of GA, something like a GS, maybe an RFC, maybe a BT. We'll see what happens. But again, we do want to make sure that if we hit a unit that we can play around, we want to be able to slam just 3 items immediately onto it, and that's going to be our temporary carry until we find a better board to pivot into, right? So, Scuttle Puddle moment, we're level 8, 59 gold. We are sitting on a lot of economy, which is really crazy. We have not rolled our shop even once because we are trying to maintain this economic threshold and pump level whenever we can. This is a very difficult position to be playing in because it's a position where you have to know that if you're taking level up, you don't need to roll. Because if you take level up and you roll your money and then you just never make the economic threshold, you're not going to garner a lot of value out of your prismatic here. So it's a very good job here that DP just doesn't roll, knows that he's in a spot or position rather to play for level up and be able to fast 9 because he knows that he doesn't have to roll for his board. Here we're given Chemtech enhancements, Jewel Lotus, and Contagion. Jewel Lotus would not be great from this spot. We do already have the IE Slam, so we're actually garnering, it's redundant value, if you will. It's just value that we're not going to be able to play around. We do have the Chemtech enhancements that we're going to reroll over Salvage Bid and Contagion. I would reroll Jewel Lotus in this spot, personally speaking. Yep, there we go, tons of stats. And tons of stats we know as a combat augment is just better than Contagion in general. It's close though. It's definitely close. Magic Wand, no real reason to take it. The Raw doesn't do us any favors along the fact that we're not playing around any AP. We do have this Shojin Slam at the moment, so we will be playing around AP later. But like I said before, we have to play for now. Tons of stats gives us the most stats, or rather gives us the most power for now. So tons of stats is the way to go. So here, as we can see, we do have Shojin Gunblade. We are going to be playing around AP carry, I guess, in the end, with somebody later. Right now, the items are fine on Jinx. Shojin is actually an okay item on Jinx because she does like casting in general. So, we're not in a bad spot at all. To me, it looks like at 4-5, we're just going to push fast 9 and then just start rolling and hoping for the best. This level up is very first or eighth. It's very first or eighth. You have to be able to pivot quickly, pivot into these decisions and boards that you can just play right on the fly and just play into just quickly. The hardest part about level up is that your level 9 transition has to be quick. It has to be as quick as possible. You have to be as flexible as you can be. And even for the best of players, it takes like a couple turns. Because you don't know what your level 9 board looks like. It's sort of like a 5-cost soup. It's a 9-5 supremacy sort of board. Where if you don't know, it's just Bill Gates. You just play as many legendaries as you can and flex around whatever you hit. Right now, because we have Shojin Gunblade, it's hard to say what type of 5-cost we're even going to be playing around. It's a very difficult spot to be in. We don't have to play around 5-cost. We can also play around 4-cost as well. We do have the Lux on bench. And with Shojin Gunblade, we're probably looking for a third item that we can throw onto this Lux here. Ideally, probably GS. Yep, there we go. We take the bow. And we're probably going to do like a Shojin Gunblade GS Slam. That's probably the best case scenario here. And that's going to be like our Lux items. It's not great, but, I mean, it's better than nothing here, right? So, I'm going to play this at regular speed. You can see we're pumping level, and immediately we're going to start to pivot. Again, we know the units that we're going to try to play around. We have, like, the Lux, we have the Shin, we have the Sejuanis. Any purple units, any gold units, we're trying to pick them up. We're not probably playing around this Azir. We can maybe play it into Azir Lux. I think that's something, like, he's definitely considering. Slowly taking out units that he knows are shitters that he's not going to be keeping onto his board here. Does find a Gwen, which is a very interesting decision to make. Only 5 seconds left on the clock. Hits the Lux 2, hits the Jace 2. Really kind of, again, a little awkward, but it's a slow pivot. It's a slow transition. So even though again, our items are still on this Jinx here, we do want to pivot out of that. Also pivot out of Piltover as well. This Piltover is not doing us any favors. We are garnering charges on it, but like it's not like we're going to get anything out of it really. So it's very possible that you can actually just like pivot out of Piltover, just don't utilize these charges. It's a little awkward, but it was his strongest board at the time, so it's fine. Again, playing this at regular speed, making back up to the 20 to 30, and then rolling down again. Finds the Aatrox too. We have a Jarvan pair, we have the Scion, we have the fourth Aatrox, I guess. And then we, again, slowly taking out of units here. Again, I would definitely switch out of Piltover at this point. There's no reason to be holding it, as well as this Callista too for fun. Definitely can sell it as well. Roll down a bit more, hit a Sejuani too. Definitely gonna switch that out instead. Oh, for the Scion. I would have switched out the Vi as well. It's a little it's a whatchamacallit, it's a little optimistic to assume that you're going to be able to win this next fight here, because again, we're carrying a Jinx 2 into 4-6 into a very high roll lobby. Again, respectful, humble. Setsuko here with the Jinx 3 from the Think Fast, and everybody spiked turbo amounts on this prismatic, and DP is down to 1 life. And again, we have to be finding this pivot. We still haven't found our pivot. We still haven't completed it yet. Notice here, again, he sells the Jinx here and starts rolling again. I love that he's doing this, that he's rolling on neutrals, because by rolling on neutrals, he's able to sort of, have a little extra time, give himself a little extra time to be able to, pivot his board. Sometimes players will do this thing where they will just they'll pivot on 5-1, trying to make that extra economic thresholds, because they're not willing to give up the extra 2 to 3 gold just to try and roll down and find some more units to play around. So here, going to Scuttle Puddle, and again, because of Scuttle Puddle, we're going to be finding a lot of more gold, a lot more components here to be playing around, so we have a lot to juggle here with, right? Back up to 53 gold, but again, we're rolling down because we need to find units that we can play around. Hit the Senna 2, which is great. Hit the Gwen 2, which is something that we could maybe consider. Hit the Nasus pair, Cassante as well. I don't know why he doesn't pick up the Cassantes, which is kind of interesting. I would love to hear your opinion on this. I personally think Cassante is one of the strongest 5-cost units, and he seems to just very, very much not prioritize it at all. Maybe his argument is that he just doesn't have Bastion in, so that's just something that he just doesn't prioritize. But here we can start to see that he starts slamming items. He does hit the Bel'Veth. Interesting decision here to actually itemize the Bel'Veth here. He actually has basically Gigabits Bel'Veth, but it is a Bel'Veth 1, so it is a little risky here. If it were me, if we could just roll it back a little bit. If we're looking at the items here, we do have what it looks like Bel'Veth items. I guess you just don't have a choice here. You can maybe do like IE on the Bel'Veth, Shojin, Gunblade, Lux, and then +1, or you could even do like Gunblade, GS, or Gunblade, Titans, Ionic Spark on the Gwen, because that's a Gwen 2. That would be the strong decision for now, but I guess DP is thinking it's 1st or 8th. I either pray to God I hit this Bel'Veth 2, or I'm just going fucking 8th, so he's actually itemizing the Bel'Veth over the Gwen, which is really smart decision making, actually. This is not something I would have done. I would have played for now, but for him, he knows his spot it's doomed. Either way, he either makes it or he dies. So he knows for a fact he's going to just gamble it all onto this Bel'Veth here. And it's a smart decision to make here. I think at the end of the day, again, looking back on it, I definitely would have done like Gunblade, like GS Titans or whatever onto this Gwen here. And that would have been my board. I don't agree with the Ionic Spark Slam on the Nasus though. I do think it should go on Gwen here. That way you at least have a 2-item dual carry. And that could like do you a little bit more favors here again. Going again into 5-2, he does win finally, which is great. And then we're just going to slow it down. Going to watch the pivot again. He still hasn't finished transitioning his board. He has a Gwen 2, a Lux 2 unitemized on his board. It's very, very awkward to be in this position. Finds the Bel'Veth 2, which is really, really nice here. Suddenly his board's looking a little better. Can't tech into the Heimerdinger just yet. We have no money to be playing around to be doing that kind of thing. Ends up slamming the Zeke's Herald, which is great because like he has to use his items. Right? He has to use the items. So now we're sitting on a pretty actually strong board. And again, this board took us like 4 rounds. 4 rounds? 4-5, 4-6, 4-7, 5-1, 5-2. So actually 5 rounds, if you include Scuttle. So it took us a long time to pivot into this board. And this is one, again, level up. It's a 1st or 8th. You have to be willing to go 8th if you take level up, because that's the decision you made, right? We can't tech into the Heimer again just yet because we are poor, but again, our board is looking kind of good now. We do have the Shojin on this Senna as well with the Zeeks, getting a little extra bonus buffs here, but again, we want to make sure that we're getting that double what's it called? Long distance PAL value on our Gwen as well as our Bel'Veth too. Again, like I said before, I don't agree with the Ionic Spark Slam onto the Nasus. I really do think it should have been on Gwen, because now when we're entering Carousel here on 5-5, because we should be assuming that we're winning, because if we don't, we're dead, right? Going into the Carousel here, we definitely could have played like, I don't know, like BT Gwen, Guardbreaker Gwen. This is actually, I believe this is a Scion 2. Guardbreaker, like, Gunblade, and then Ionic Spark Gwen, and we would have had like a really strong dual carry actually. People are sort of sleeping on Gwen. They think Gwen is like a bad unit for whatever reason. It's not that she's a bad unit per se, it's more that she just needs very strict conditions to be, you know, to be actually useful. We do actually end up selling the Lux 2 here, which is a really interesting decision here. Notice how, okay, let's go back a little bit, because this is important to talk about. He makes the decision here to sell the Lux. So why does he sell Lux in this spot? Because it's giving us Sork for our Ari, right? Well, Sork is kind of a fake trait. As you'll notice that as you cap out your board, you will start to slowly pivot out of a lot of vertical traits, because unit quality outweighs traits in the very, very late game. So we don't need Sork anymore. Sork isn't doing us any favors. Plus, it's an RE1 with no items. It's not like it's buffing us very hard. So actually getting this Heimer 2 in, which is 1 turn upgrade, that's more than enough. That makes enough sense for us to pivot into because it's our stronger board. You'll notice, like, for example, if you're playing something like 8 Sork, for example, you will start to eventually hit a wall with how far 8 Sork can go, and you'll need to start like cutting down to the point where you are playing like a bunch of legendaries, a bunch of flex units, because that will always be your stronger board. The unit quality will always outweigh just any vertical trait, because like, would you rather play like a bunch of like shitters or like a bunch of legendaries? You know what I mean? So as we can see here, double shrink on the Heimer turret, which is really, really great. These like wins, by the way, are absolute landslides because he was finally able to hit a board that he could play around and play for first with. He does finally make it into the top 4 here, inside with Insight, Soul Reaver, and Unwolf. And again, his board is really, really strong. He can maybe try to start econing to try to go level 10. He is only missing the Ari 2, I believe, and quite honestly, I think he could just play this Rise over this Ari. I don't think this Ari is doing him any favors. It is Battle City Rise though. It's not the strongest of Rises, but actually, if we go back a little bit, what I think he could have done instead is that he actually hits another Senna here and another Aatrox. I actually think that another Senna on his board is probably stronger than an Ari. It's a very small nitpicky detail, but this Ari really isn't doing much except for mana reaving, which I guess you could argue is pretty good actually. But I do think just getting the double Senna on the board is probably stronger, especially for playing around a Bel'Veth carry who really, really likes attack speed, and you basically get like double the shields going off with Senna and the other Senna both like popping off with shields. You can also pop the Anvil at this point. See if you hit something like a mana generating item, something like a blue buff or like a Shojin, and double Senna would make a lot of sense. But he does end up deciding against it. He does hit a Shojin, which is great. So he could have definitely played the double Senna here, but I guess, while holding the Ari pair. Does pick up the TG here, which is really, really cool, and ends up throwing it onto the Heimerdinger. Heimerdinger, you should always throw it onto every time. If you're stuck between 2 options, you don't know which one to put it on or your items on, just think about how much money you invested into them, right? That's the easiest way to think about it. It's the most raw way of thinking about units in TFT, where it's like, Heimerdinger, it's Heimer 2, Ari 2, but Heimer 2 plus like 3 mods on his turret. You should probably itemize the Heimerdinger over this Ari 2 if you're given a situation like this where like both of them could utilize the items equally as well, in this case, a Thief's Glove. So here, again, we're sitting at 6-2, and we're sitting on a Gwen 2 still with a Gunblade Guardbreaker. It's still very, very awkward. I'm sure at a certain point we do want to pivot off of this Gwen eventually. It's hard to say what we're going to pivot off into, but if I had to take a guess, it's probably to transition the items from the Gwen onto the Ari and then switch out the Gwen for something else. But this Gwen is giving us Shadow Isles and Slayer. Again, you do want to eventually tech out of the traits itself, but it's hard to say what else is really better from the spot. The only thing that really comes to mind is maybe a Cassante 2 over this Gwen 2. You do lose Shadow Isles, you do lose Slayer, but those 2 traits, they're really not providing that much more value to your board. It's really not a lot. So, because the only units that are benefiting from Slayer are Aatrox and Gwen, and then on top of that, you know, I guess it just doesn't matter, just was the game. But you get the idea, right? Probably want to switch out the Gwen for like a Cassante 2, and that's probably like our end game cap. Anyways though, that's it for this video. I hope you guys learned something. Take care. Happy climbing.